Is Sabrina Carpenter's new album cover misogynistic or satirical?
I think it's satire.
I disagree. I think it's misogynistic. Why do you think it's satirical?
I just always go back to like the ability to reclaim sexuality or racism. Like I'm a pigmented person who loves hip hop, and the use of the N-word was wrought with in the use, and it's like I'm using it for myself.
Okay.
You can't tell me what this is to be used for. So, and I've seen it even with like women in terms of the reclaiming of their sexuality. If this is something I've done by choice and not something I've done under the subject of the gaze, as Lacan would say, then I think it's an empowering choice for her. Because the title of her album is Man's Best Friend. And then the cover is essentially her. Is there a leash?
There's a second picture that is of a dog collar that says Man's Best Friend.
And then the picture with her is like she's on like all fours on the floor or whatever.
She's on all fours, and there's like a man standing over her with a fistful of her hair.
This is where the editing will come in. Picture here.
Like sexy baby pouting.
Yeah, and she chose to do that. I don't think that's misogyny. It's misogyny if somebody made... It would be misogyny if this was a male artist and the female model had to do that. The fact that she is the primary artist and if she was allowed to make this decision, then I think it's satire.
I don't know. I think it's so hard. I mean, she can obviously do whatever she wants. That's her choice. She has agency. But at the same time, I think that two things can be true at the same time. Like you can there are a lot of women that choose to cater to the male gaze and I think that's exactly what this is. It's like hard to say, okay, it's empowering and you're reclaiming your sexuality in a way that aligns with like misogynistic tropes and like catering to like male fantasies of like domination and like subjugation of women. And so that's why for me, I'm like, it isn't satire, because who's the target audience and what's the purpose of this imagery? It's just like, oh, like, yeah, I'm in on the joke, but it's like, it's not transgressive. You know what I mean? It's not pushing any sort of boundary. It's maintaining this like status quo.
When you talk about the gaze, right? The idea of the gaze is that it's an object or it's a thing, and that the expectation, the anticipation of the outside world on that thing or item sometimes causes the thing or item to conform or whatever, right?
Sure.
But women are seeing the Sabrina Carpenter cover. Men who maybe aren't leaned into this sort of dominant energy are seeing the Sabrina Carpenter cover. And they're all having their own experience with it. And I'm looking at it from a satirical perspective of, whereas in most instances where I thought the gaze was negative, was a woman did not have a choice but to be put into this place to be then objectified and subject to the images and the perspectives of others, versus her saying, I have chosen to do this. The example I'll give is this. Kanye West goes on the red carpet with his wife and he tells her to walk nude. I think there was one time with the MTV Music Video Awards, Little Kim walked and she had like nipple covers or whatever. Mm-hmm. Similar concept, essentially being incredibly revealing on a red carpet. Mm-hmm. But it does feel nastier at the idea that a man told you to do that. And now you're subject to my gaze because of agency outside of yourself, versus now you're subject to my gaze because you've chosen to do this.
Right.
I don't equate those two things as the same.
It's so difficult though, because it's like, well, even if with that argument, like Sabrina Carpenter, she's a pop star, she's a brand. Yeah. So there's like an anonymized team behind her. So it's like, she very well could have been told by a man, this is the direction that we're going in. This is the concept. So that's even part of it too. It's like, how much involvement does she even have with the way that she's being marketed? Yeah. And I also think to that point of like, okay, for her audience of, I guess, mostly women, I don't really know what the demographic of her fans are, but I would assume it's still like appealing to, again, this misogynistic trope that's going to get all this traction online and generate all this outrage, because you are going to have a strong emotional reaction to that type of imagery. And then it just feels like manipulative, exploitative, and especially in our current cultural climate, like there are so many other ways, I feel like, or so many other directions that you could have taken the promo for the song, the music, the album, whatever. And so it's like, to do that is definitely a choice, and one that I think does more harm than good.
I was going to say, I think it's interesting because I think it's kind of both. she does seem to be riffing on imagery from like the 60s and 70s of ads.
Because the guy's in like a suit and stuff too, right? Like it's all very deliberate.
Yeah.
And being one of the biggest pop stars in the world, like I think power is a big part of what makes satire work. You know, if she's not a powerful woman, I think it's like quite explicitly degrading. But I think the other part of satire is the question of like, what does it accomplish? And I don't know what you take, like, what's the joke? The joke is like, haha, I'm being degraded, but I like it.
Right.
Because obviously, like, you know, sub relationships are part of somebody's private sex life. That's fine. But I think you're right that if you're talking about empowerment, if you're talking about her reclaiming her sexuality, like, I don't know what it accomplishes or communicates.
Yeah.
It doesn't have a clear message that is satirical about male domination or any of these things. It does feel very much like, I thought this would be controversial, and so that's why I did it, as opposed to I was trying to make a statement about something. Yeah.
It would almost be more interesting too, like if it was like a man in like a power suit, but he was the one in all fours and she's like classic pinup, you know, whatever, and like that would have been more interesting to me than
not for the title. The title's Man's Best Friend.
Right, but I think there are
Man's
just other okay, but why? Whatever, like no, man's best friend, girl's best friend.
No,
let's change the title.
But you're just there's if that's the artistic impression you want, that exists, right? Like there's a lot of men that, again, there's the trope of powerful men who are powerful that then in these images are sometimes like the voluntary submission we're talking about. That image exists online. If you want to see a guy in a dog collar being dominated by a woman in a pinup, I can Google it for you. Like that exists. That's not the image she went for. There's place for both. And what I'm saying is that with the nature of her cover and what we're talking about, she's the object, right? That's what we'd be saying. She's the object. She's because you don't even see the face of the man, if I remember the cover properly. So she's the object. She's the art. She is the projection. If you're choosing to be that, then it's empowering. I think about even like the body artist. Who's the woman that like, it's really messed up. She did an art exhibit where for like a day you could just stand there and like beat her up or something like that. I
can't remember her name, but yeah.
Irina, it's going to bother me. But she did that, right? Yeah. And she talked, and that's her whole, she goes, my body is the art, but I've chosen this. And there's so much, I've seen other stuff she's done that's incredibly beautiful. The first time I ever saw her, she was in the Picasso video with Jay-Z, and Jay-Z said, I did this because of what I saw her do.
Marina Abramovich.
So to me, in my expression, it's like, if you're the art or you're the object, but you choose to be there, that's empowering, because you doing that is making me now see things about myself. You doing that is now taking this to another level. I'm not going to class that in, because other than that, we'd be saying that a powerful woman could never be in that submissive imagery state or in that submissive artistic state or in that submissive presentation state. And I don't think that that's true either.
Well, yeah, but I think my thing is like, of course you can do whatever you want, but don't say that it's empowering, right? Yeah. Like, I think if you're reinforcing these like pornographic tropes of like traditional domination, like man over woman, that's fine. If that's what you're into, I'm not going to yuck your yum, but that's not like doing anything for like women's liberation. If you're objectifying yourself.
But how do you know that? She's chosen to put herself in that position. She's not subject to male violence.
Right. I think my main argument is against the effectiveness of it. I don't think it effectively communicates anything empowering. Like, I understand your point of, it is her agency to put herself in that position, if that's what she chose to do without any kind of coercion from her agent or whatever, the studio. But I don't think it's empowering, because I think for it to be empowering, it has to communicate something. And I don't think it communicates anything except for, I was allowed to do this and I did.
Right.
Voluntary submission. Yeah. I have the agency to put myself here. I'm reclaiming this image as something that you thought was exclusively oppression, and I'm choosing this.
But I don't think like women being in...
The same thing with the N-word.
I don't think women being in submissive sexual relationships is a taboo that is not accepted, that she needs to raise awareness of. It's not like women being subjective in sexual relationships is weird and surprising. Like, it happens all the time.
So then she's gone with a norm and picked an imagery that suggests that. Either way, like, it's not empowering. If if we compare this to before, I'll say it this way. The empowering part is that in 2025, we're having this conversation and it's not a given that her agent made her do it.
Yeah.
And I would say that 15 years ago, forget even going too far back, we would look at this and say somebody made her do that.
Mm-hmm.
I think that is the empowerment part of it.
I don't know. It's like, I feel like, first of all, we don't have enough insight into the fact that somebody didn't make her do this. It's like,
we also live in a time where I kind of feel, again, I'm being ignorant. If somebody made her do it and the backlash happened, she would have come out and said, you're right, somebody made me do this.
But I don't know, though. Like, she's literally probably her contract, whatever, like she's represented by, you know, I feel like the music industry is so predatory and artists don't have a lot of control over their image, their like careers in general. It's kind of like you sign your life away to your label and they kind of just do whatever they think will make money. And it's like, well, of course, this has generated so much online buzz and traction, which I think if that's the goal, then that's fine. But I guess like what I would say is it's not subversive art. It's reinforcing something that's already a societal norm that I think is harmful. And it's like, especially someone with so much power and influence, it would have been cool to see her challenge that. Because I think there is a way of like embodying femininity in a way that's like cheeky, very tongue in cheek. That's not a fistful of your hair and you're like on all fours.
Yeah.
You know?
Okay, that's fair.
It almost feels like rage bait.
Okay, and I am seeing it as subversive art. I'm seeing it as
But subversive art would mean it's challenging.
Yeah, what do you think is challenging?
I think it's challenging insofar as we're having this discussion, right? It's challenging her right to voluntarily put herself in those images and spaces for the advancement of her own music career. Like, it's challenging insofar as we can't just say she chose to do this and that's fine. We're calling it rage bait. We're saying we don't know what our agents did. We're saying the music industry is predatory. Like, we're adding a whole lot to it.
So you think maybe that might have been the goal, to generate these sorts of conversations?
It could have been. I think look, it has people talking, and it's more than just a simple conversation of, oh my gosh, it's what does this mean about the music industry? What does this mean about what we think about her? What does this mean about what control she is in or isn't in? I mean, it's bringing up a lot of conversations.
It's just so hard because I guess, bringing up a lot of conversations, but I think that more speaks to the place that we're in culturally and the types of conversations that are just happening in like the zeitgeist, as opposed to this being something that like has in any way challenged the status quo.